In our politics lead, with the midterms quickly approaching, as inflation and gas prices surge, Democrats are going to need some serious fuel to avoid catastrophic election losses, experts say. Today, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer laid out their plan to win over voters by lowering gas prices, and they have picked a common enemy. Take a listen.
What is causing the increase in gas prices? Number one is market manipulation and big oil not giving a break. That is what we're focusing on.
CNN's Lauren Fox joins us live from the Hill. Lauren, how are Democrats able to stay on message on this?
Well, that was the message from leadership, Jake, but the message from some rank and file earlier this week was Senator Joe Manchin held a bipartisan meeting with Republicans to come up with an all-of-the-above energy strategy. And that really reveals here that after 4 months, when Manchin torpedoed Build Back Better, you still have Democrats grappling with what the message is. Inflation is a problem. Immigration is a problem. And yet Democrats are all over the map in terms of how to fix those issues. I asked Senator Manchin if he thought that Democrats had a cohesive strategy. He said, I've always had a cohesive message. It's not in sync with the other 49. And that is something that you are hearing from members who say there's not much time left to get something together. You have a lot of members who are on the front line saying it's up to me at this point to go back to my district, go back to my state, run against Washington, and speak out for whatever I think my voters need. That is the strategy a lot of Democrats are deploying because they say there isn't a cohesive message right now from their leadership or from Democrats at large.
And Lauren, Senate Republicans and Democrats are sparring over Ukraine funding. They're pointing fingers at each other for jamming up this process. Is Biden's $33 billion proposal going to pass?
It's going to take some time, Jake. You heard Republicans today say that they want to look through this proposal. They have concerns about the divide between military funding as well as humanitarian funding, saying they think Ukraine is going to need more money for weapons than might be in this supplemental. You also have to write this legislation. That takes a lot of time. So don't expect this to come up next week, especially because the House is already gone for a week-long recess. Senate Democrats and Republicans are going to continue having discussions next week, but this could take several more weeks, Jake, to put together, despite the fact that the president said he wanted this done quickly.
All right, Lauren Fox on Capitol Hill, thanks so much. Let's bring in our panel. Nayyera, welcome back. Good to have you. So let me ask you, you just heard Democrats their message is going after big oil. Pelosi and Schumer going after big oil for alleged market manipulation. Should that be their focus, do you think, for the midterms?
Well, what we've heard from President Biden so far was Putin's price hike, right? Trying to say that inflation and rising gas prices, which were happening before the war in Ukraine, were to blame on this war in Russia. And that's not really holding up, especially as this war continues and the American people want relief. We know that oil and gas companies are making record profits, and they are choosing to pass off that money to their investors to pay off their own debt. It is not reflected in the sticker price at the pump. So to be able to direct American ire at gas prices away from the president onto oil and gas companies is not only sound economic policy, it could also be a politically winning message.
Maybe. Jonah, another huge issue landing on Democrats' lap right now is immigration, especially all the illegal immigration. President Biden stirred up opposition on both sides of the aisle when he tried to get rid of this Trump-era rule that allowed a quicker deportation of individuals because of the pandemic, known as Title 42. I want you to take a listen to Arizona Democratic Congressman Greg Stanton grilling the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas earlier today.
Putting more pressure on a system that can't handle it carries a significant risk of creating a full-scale humanitarian crisis on American soil, for which the White House and your department will be solely responsible. No person who cares about migrants should want that. It's clear to me that the federal government is not prepared, not even close.
Just to remind people, that's a Democrat.
Right.
So if that's what a swing state Democrat is saying, how cogent an issue do you think this is? And is it as big an issue if you're not in a border state?
I think it's becoming well, look, we just had Maggie Hassan, who's running for Senate re-elect in New Hampshire,
right,
do an ad from the border, right? So this has national resonance for all sorts of things. I think part of the problem that Biden and the Democrats have generally is I feel like I should have brought my Fonzie lunchbox, right? Because it's like 1970s all over again, where every bad problem seems like a metaphor for other bad problems. Inflation seems out of control. It is. Prices are out of control. Immigration seems out of control. International affairs seem out of control. And you can't just sort of isolate any one without and contain it as an issue without taking into a fact that just generally it feels like people aren't in charge and the Democrats don't know what they're doing. I'm not saying the Republicans do know what they're doing, but they have the luxury of being able to say, you guys own all three branches of government right now. It's on you to fix it. And the Title 42 thing it's a real catch-22 for him, because on the one hand, the Democrats definitely need the base to be roused and show up. On the other hand, if they want to win moderates and centrists, they have to do things on immigration that the base does not want them to do, very much like the student loan problem. And I don't think there's a way to sort of cut the Gordian knot or fix the Kobayashi Maru or whatever reference you want to use here.
Let's talk about student loan debt, because Nayyera, here's President Biden's comments today on student loan debt. Take a listen.
I am considering dealing with some debt reduction. I am not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness, and I'll have an answer on that in the next couple of weeks.
What do you think?
This election cycle, Democrats are going to have to figure out who they want to be. Are they going to continue to try to win back non-college educated white men? If they're not, then yes, there's a very easy appeal to make to millennial voters, to black women who carry the majority of student loan debt. It's 43% of college educated people have student loan debt, 90% of black people, right? That is a significant coalition that Biden can tap into if it's a play of playing to the base and having those voters turn out. Student loan debt for this generation is a pocketbook issue.
Yeah, and Jonah, I want to get your reaction to this from Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney. Quote, Democrats considering forgiving trillions in student loans, other bribe suggestions, forgive auto loans, forgive credit card debt, forgive mortgages, and put a wealth tax on the super rich to pay for it all. What could possibly go wrong? Is that the right response for Republicans trying to counteract this?
But look, I think Mitt Romney makes a very good point about auto loans. Most people don't have student debt because most people don't go to college. And most of the people who do have student debt have manageable amounts of it. A lot of the student debt has to do with grad schools and other sort of, I don't want to say irresponsible, but things that I don't feel that the average taxpayer should be on the hook for. If you wanted to actually have a broad-based populist loan forgiveness program, and I'm not supporting this, forgive people's auto loans for people who make less than $50,000 a year and buy non-luxury cars, because that would actually go to where, that would have a much more democratic and egalitarian appeal. The problem is that the Democratic Party is increasingly becoming the party of higher education, of educated elites, and when you have people like AOC and Ilhan Omar being the faces of student loan forgiveness, it is and I don't mean this in any sort of ethnic way. I just mean in terms of you have young elite radical progressives who are claiming to be taking this very sort of egalitarian position when in fact student loan forgiveness by its very nature benefits people who already have a better shot at life because we've told them, go to college and you'll do better, and college graduates make more money than non-college graduates.
Well, that's the key part, right? The cultural disconnect that we're getting at here is that a generation was told that if they went to college, they would get good-paying jobs. Instead, they have been saddled with predatory loans where you can graduate from college and 20 years later, you have not even tackled the principal in all of your payments, right? Millennials are the first generation that is working longer hours, making less money, and unable to advance economically compared to a previous generation. So it's not just a matter of, did you know what you signed up for and are you paying your debt, right, that you owe? The American government does take into account predatory housing loans and has regulations in place to address that. These are predatory student loans with promises of a better future saddled onto 18-year-olds who are given no fiscal education of what any of this actually means.
And speaking of education, I do want to get your thought, Jonah, about Governor Kemp signed several education bills today. One of the new laws limits discussions on race. It seems to be right out of the playbook of what we've seen from Governor DeSantis in Florida. Do Democrats need to counteract these bills, these pushes from Republican governors, you think?
I don't know how, right? David Shore, the political consultant, one of his arguments is that there are just some issues that don't help Democrats very well, and so maybe they just shouldn't talk about those issues. It seems to me that this is one of them. I haven't studied the actual bills. Lots of people misreport how a lot of these bills, what they actually do or don't do. But at the end of the day, what Kemp is trying to do is just win a primary, and this is signaling at that level. And my hunch is, if they're as bad as some people say, there'll be court challenges, and they won't last long. But you know, the press releases read fine to me. But press releases for a lot of laws read fine to me until you actually look at the details.
What Kemp is doing, what DeSantis is doing in Florida, right? They're trying to make, again, that big swing at the culture argument to play to a conservative base. It's different to some degree than what Trump did, because it's not about personal vendettas, right? It's about changing the direction, of course, of society. But, you know, swinging at Disney, like, if you're going to come for Big Mouse, you really should actually know what you're doing and be able to win it. So that's a challenge that, unfortunately, when they trying to come for these big conglomerates that you know, every family watches, knows, and understands Disney, they're up against something very different and more powerful than the Democratic Party.
Nayyera, Jonah, thank you so much. Good to see you both. My next guest just came out.